where you heard about it? In what context?
Yeah, Shipra. So I was wondering, obviously, if there's this existing system, so and there's something like as is and to be, so the future state. So obviously, they migrate the existing data in the future, right? So I was wondering how it is done, like
Mm-hmm.
in detail. So
Yeah.
in my work itself, so we currently the bank is creating a new user interface.
Mm-hmm.
So my migration is happening on. So I heard it there. How I mean I'm interested to learn how the data migrates from legacy to the new systems.
Okay. Okay. Sure. Sure. So I'll try to explain it in detail. Yeah. Um,
Hmm.
but from what you just said, right? You talked about three different things. First thing that you talked about is to be process and as is process, right? Second thing
Hmm.
you talked about is data migration from legacy system to the new system. And third thing that you talked about is the bank developing the UI, new user interface, right?
Hmm.
So let me first clarify on these three things so that we are on same page on what we are talking about, right? So
Sure.
when you're talking about as a state and to be state, you are basically talking about gap analysis, right? So what is right now and where I want it to be. Only then you can find out where are the gaps that you need to fill in to reach that to be state, right? So that's gap analysis. So
Hmm.
whenever you capture requirements, you understand from the client what we want, where we want to reach to, and then you analyze where we are right now, and then you figure out what needs to be done to reach from where I am right now to where I want to be. So let's say I am in Delhi and I want to reach to Gurgaon, right? Then you know
Hmm.
what solution options I have. I can come via NH8, I can go via Dwarka Expressway, I can go via third route. So there will be three to four options that you have, and
Hmm.
you choose what's the best option for you, and that's the option which takes less time, less transportation charges, which is more beneficial to you. You select that option. So that's the
Hmm.
basic of um, any project, any requirement. It's not particularly related to data migration. Yeah, so data
Hmm.
migration also is in the same way, where I am right now, where I want to be, and how to reach to that stage. But
Hmm.
it's not only data migration, it is for all. Yeah, that's the first point.
Hmm.
Second point is creating a UI, new user interface, right? So when some IT system creates a new user interface, they not do not necessarily have a data migration, embedded within the same. So first of all, we have to understand where we store data. What we
Hmm.
do is we create a database. Think of it as a table. So we store our data in that table. So you can imagine an Excel file, right? There are
Okay.
rows and there are columns,
Hmm.
right? So what you
Hmm.
do is you save all your data in an Excel file. You'll say, you know, you give a heading. Underneath that, you create rows with, one item in that heading. So let's say your first column is ID, second column is employee name, third column is employee, how long the employee is with the organization, fourth column is employee salary, like that, right?
Hmm.
And then you
Hmm.
create rows wherein you say, first employee ID 1, Shipra, employees with the company for 10 years and salary is X amount. Then second row, Vijay, you ID is 2, name is Vijay, associated with the company for last 3 years, salary is X amount, Y amount, right? So that's how you fill up your tables. So
Hmm.
exactly in the same manner, your data is saved in a database tables. So all your data will be in more than one tables. and then you will have this data linked to each other via some key. So for example, I can have one table where I am storing ID, employee name, and employee association with the company. And I have another table where I'm keeping the salaries because I don't want to expose salary to everyone else,
Okay.
everyone. So I have another
Yeah.
table wherein I'm saying employee ID, salary, X amount. So in this table, I don't have employee name because even if someone knows the ID and even if someone knows the salary, they don't know which employee is getting how much salary, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
have kind of hidden my data. But I have also kept the relationship. So if I want to find out, who is ID1, I can always go back to my other table and I can say that okay, ID1 is Shipra. Make sense?
Yeah, Shipra, yeah.
Yeah. So all your data is saved in a database in a tabular format in different tables, and these tables are linked to each other. Now,
Mm-hmm.
there is a UI layer on top of it. So what this UI layer does is it's a screen that we see, right? So screen is showing who. So if someone has have clicked a button saying that give me list of all employees, what this screen is then going to do is on button click there will be code. So there will be a database at in the middle, then there is a layer on top of it which is kind of the code layer, and I'm trying to explain it in the very basic layman terms, right? And then there is a layer which is UI layer. So
Mm-hmm.
UI layer is where the trigger happens. So and then there is a code. So in the code it has been written, if someone clicks on get employee list button in UI, go to database, go to this so and so table, get the list of all employees and show it on the UI. So this
Okay.
code will interact between UI and database.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
if someone wants to change the UI layer, if someone wants to change the look and feel, right? If someone wants to move the button from maybe right side to left side, they can
Mm-hmm.
do that without touching the database.
Okay.
Okay. And when that happens, your data migration does not come into picture. You can still remain, with the same database, and you can change the just the UI layer on top of it.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. There can be
Yeah.
another case where along with UI layer, you want to change the database structure as well, because the changes that you are doing in front end, right, on the UI layer, they they are not compatible with your current database structure. But very few
Mm-hmm.
companies will do that exercise just to have a better UI, because
Mm-hmm.
data migration is a very intensive projects. They take a lot of time, they take a lot of they are kind of risky as well, and they are time consuming projects, and they are less value given projects.
Mm-hmm.
So very few clients will do these data migration projects just to change their UI. So if UI is happening, they most probably do not they are not most probably they are not doing a data migration.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now,
Okay.
the thing is data migration, which is the topic for today. But so far these two things are clear.
Yeah, Shipra, clear.
Okay.
Mm,
Now,
yeah.
coming on to data migration. So first of all, we have to understand, what is data migration and why we do data migration, right? So as you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned, data migration is from one system to another system. So what you are doing is you are migrating or moving all of your data from one database to another database, right?
Mm-hmm.
It is not a must have that you need to have two different systems. You might be moving from one platform to another platform, and you might be restructuring your database, you might be cleaning your database, right? So there can be a number of reasons. You might want to move from your servers to cloud, right? Those are the
Mhm.
type of situations when you move your data tables to another database.
Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah. So
got it.
what is legacy system? Legacy systems are the systems when which came into the being when the IT started. So they are kind of most of them are mainframe based systems with very poor user interface. They are just black screens. Even if some systems they do have the screens available, they are on old technologies which are not currently being supported. So they are the systems which are still in use, but they are not as latest as today's systems, right? So those are legacy systems, and we sometimes move from legacy systems to newer systems to get a technology upgrade, to get a better UI, to get better security, to get
Mhm.
better management of data, right? There can be n number of benefits that can be there, and that's why we move from one system to another system. But not necessarily data migration happens from legacy system to a newer system. Data migration can happen if the client is switching their platform, right? So if they are going from windows based server to web based server, so that time data migration can happen. If they are moving from as I mentioned, from server to cloud, that time data migration can happen. So
Mhm.
data migration can happen, in any project. But whenever that happens, it's it takes a toll on the client, right? And the value add is less.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
the benefits are noted in terms of being on the latest technology, and then how latest technology will give them the value.
Mhm. Yeah. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, talking about legacy systems, I mean, I was not in IT before, so I was assuming that legacy system means something that the system that is existing ones. Is it is it wrong, Supra?
Yeah, so these are old systems which are still in use.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So let me
Mhm.
take an example. So when we started, right? So what we used to have? We used to have this Windows XP, Windows 2000, right?
Yeah.
Now we don't have Windows 2000, right? We have a Windows 2024. So
Okay. Okay.
Windows 2000 is legacy. Some
Okay.
laptops, some systems, they'll still be having Windows 2000 uploaded on their systems, right? Some people will
So it's
be
like
using
older
Windows 2000.
versions.
I'm sorry?
It's like older versions.
Yes.
They're still using. Okay, I got it now. Right.
So there, when IT started, right, when computers came into being, some systems
Mm.
some applications were developed, some systems were created, but later on they became obsolete over a period of time. But they're
Yeah.
still in use, right?
Okay. Mm.
So people are still using them. People are still, doing their day-to-day work on it. Um, you must have heard about Tele, right? So no one uses Tele nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah.
One uses
Yes. Yes.
Excel. So you might have heard about some Lotus Notes or something like that was there, right? So
Mhm.
they are legacy systems. They are still in use, but they are old systems. And we want to move from older versions to newer versions, and that's why these older versions were using one database, and newer versions are using another database. We have to we have to take all our data from older system to the newer system. Yeah.
Mhm. Clear. Sure.
So that's when data migration kicks in. Sometimes what happens is, uh, let's say I'm using one particular application, and I don't like it, and I want to move from this application to another application, right?
Mhm.
So that time also you do a data migration exercise wherein you move your data. Let
Mhm.
me take an example. So you are switching laptops, right? So
Okay.
let's say you are having a desktop and now you have purchased a new laptop. So
Mhm.
it won't happen that on your new laptop you'll have all your data. So you'll copy all your data from your old laptop and you'll paste it in your new laptop, right? You'll maybe
Yes.
some hard drive, or you'll use some cloud,
Yeah.
uh, something you'll use. You'll first upload your all your files, send them to Gmail, and then download it again from there, right? So one other
Mm-hmm.
thing you'll do to move from your old laptop to new laptop or old desktop to new laptop, right?
Yes.
So, so same thing is data migration, where you copy your files and folders and all of your data from one system to another system. Sometimes, let me take another example. So let's say, mm, so we used to have this communicator earlier, right? So now communicator is not supported, and now Teams is mostly used.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
let's say you have some files on communicator, you want to move them to um, Teams channel or Teams folder, right? So that's
Mm-hmm.
where you are migrating data. Orkut, we used to have Orkut earlier,
Yeah.
right? Before Facebook,
Yes.
and then Facebook came in. So people downloaded all their photos from Orkut and uploaded it on Facebook, right? So
Yeah.
that's nothing. That's all data migration examples, right? So the way
Mm-hmm.
you are moving your data from one file to another, you are moving your data from floppy disk to CD, and then CD to systems, and then system to clouds, right? You keep on moving
Mm-hmm.
data, right, so that you don't lose it. So exactly in
Mm-hmm.
the same manner, data migration projects are happened, because the data is so much that one person cannot just move it.
Mm-hmm.
The company wide data.
Yeah. Understood, Shipra. Mhm.
Yeah, let's take a break, and I invite other members also. So Manjula, Srinivas, Alok, please do join us on stage. Send me a request and I'll approve it. And in case you have any questions on what we are discussing so far, please feel free to let me know, because it is very important to understand one concept before we move on to another. Yeah, yeah. So any questions from your side, Vijay?
Yes, Shipra. I mean, on a broad level, it's very clear, like
Mm-hmm.
what data migration means, and from transferring from legacy or from something to something else. But I wanted to have like now how in say for example in a project how it happens, like how they transfer it, how do
Mm-hmm.
they do it?
Yeah. So data transfer happens technically, right? So
Mm-hmm.
So I won't talk about how it happens, but I'll talk about what BA can do in a data
Okay. Yeah.
migration project, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Sure.
what is expected from a BA, rather than how it happens. So how is
Mm-hmm.
technical aspect, right? So um, the team does nothing. They just also copy it some one way or the other. So as I mentioned, sometimes you connect two systems and then copy files from one system to another system. That's one way to do it. Then other way to do it, to upload it on cloud and then download it from cloud, send it over email, get it downloaded from email. So there can be a number of ways
Mm-hmm.
to move your data, right? So there can be a number of technical ways also for moving the data, and let's leave it to the technical team on how they do it. Let's focus
Okay.
on, as a BA, what we need to do,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, to ensure the smooth data migration.
Yeah. Shipra.
Okay. So others have also joined us on stage. Hi all. Hi Manjula, Nivas, hi Alok. Do we have any questions before we move forward?
No, no. For me, only one question is there any mapping document which a BA has to prepare during migration or something?
Yes, we'll talk about it shortly, Manjula. Yeah. Okay. Any questions from you, Alok, Srinivas? I'll take silence as no. Yeah, let's move on. So now we all understand what a data migration is and what.
Hello,
Yeah. Hi,
am I audible, Shipra?
yes, Alok. Hi,
Hi,
Alok.
Shipra. This is Alok. So, thank you so much. Very useful information. I have one question regarding this.
Mm-hmm.
I got this opportunity once, but I did not contribute effectively. But yeah, it was data migration. But suppose client want to move from DB2 to MS SQL, there is data migration. Maybe they are using legacy system but want to moving new system. Maybe here table is having suppose person or policy related or claim related whatever. So suppose table is having 7 attributes, and that client side they are having 8 or 10. So how we can, like, there will be data mapping sheet. So in this context, I want to understand more how the
Mhm.
things will go.
Okay. Okay. So let me continue with the session, and we'll come back to your question in the end if it is still a question. Yeah.
Okay, okay, sure. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Alok.
Mm.
Okay. So now we know what data migration is. Now we talk about how to migrate data. So as I mentioned, uh, there can be different options to migrate the data, right? Uh, most of them are technical options, which technical team will handle, right? But before we talk about a BA, as a BA we are consultants as well, right? So once we understand the data, or the quantity of data, so what we need to do is first of all understand what we are, which data we are moving, which system we are moving it from, and which system is our target system. So what is the source system, what is the target system, and what my data is. Once we understand that, there is always an option of doing it manually. So I once worked with the client, and they had this 100 rows or 100 data points, 100 things that needed to be moved into the new system. So what we did was we suggested to them that instead of doing a complete data migration project, it is better for you to manually enter all that records in the system, by hand, because that will be much cheaper for you. So that's an option always, but very rarely we'll choose that option, because we won't be earning anything out of the whole project, right? But do keep that option in mind, because it might save you a lot of trouble down the line, right? So if you're working on a project, if you're implementing a new system for the client, and the client says, okay, I have this system, system already in place, move my data also to the new system that you are creating. So client will make some request, and once you understand the data and you think that it's just 15, 20 records, or 100 records, 200 records, that's it that you need to move. So instead of doing a data migration project, do consult, give a consultation to the client. Please do it manually. It will be much easier, cheaper, faster as well, right? So instead of taking out a whole data migration activity and then realizing, oh, the end thing is just 100 records, it's not, it won't justify the cost that the client will incur for the data migration project, right? And what might end up happening is that you do all this exercise, and you do all these mappings and everything, and your technical team do all the work, and in the end client says, oh, I realize I only have 100 records, I'm not paying for it, so scrap the project in the middle of it, right? So that can also happen if that's really the case. So data migration projects only, deep, pick them up if the number of records is in thousands at least. But anything less than that, just give, just suggest to the client, do it manually. There's always an option. Yeah.
Yeah, Shipra, clear. Mhm.
Okay. Now, let's say you have understood that there are thousands of records. There are so much data that needs to be moved. It is manual is not an option. Now, what you need to do is you need to first of all understand the data, source system and target system, right? So my source system may have, as Alok gave the example, 6 records. My target system may have 8 records. In my source system, I may be keeping data in 2 levels, right? So at a top header level, and then I may have a, I may have a, structure like parent. And under parent, I have one or more child items. In my target system, I may have a parent, and then a child, and then a child subchild to the child. I may have a 3 tier architecture in the target system. In my system, I might be having particular type of records, but my target system may have lesser type of records, or lesser types available to me. So what you need to do is understand your current system and understand your target system, and understand your data, what data I am supposed to move from one system to another system. Once you And believe me, it's not a one time exercise. You cannot, like, it cannot happen that, like, I'll tell you, understand the data, and you look at the data for 3 4 days and you'll understand it. No, it won't happen that way. No one can understand data that way, right? So what you need to start doing is you need to start mapping out. So in data migration projects, a mapping document is created in which you say, okay, these are the fields I have in my source system, these are the fields I have in my target system, and this data will go to this field in target system. So in my source field, I have a data of date. It will go to uh, date field in target system. I have a data name. This data will go to employee name field in the target system. I have a data salary. This field will go to uh, pay pay field in the target system, right? So similar fields will be there, but they may have different names. So what you will say is which field in my source system will go to which field in the target system, and then dev team will pick up that data and send it across, and that's how the data migration will happen. Any questions so far?
No, Shipra.
Okay. Now, as a BA, your work is create this mapping sheet, but it is easier said than done, for sure. The reason why is, first of all, you will have to figure out what data do you want to move. So we took an example that you have your desktop and you have your laptop. Your desktop might be having 100 files. Do you always transfer all those 100 files to laptop? If your time is less, then maybe yes. But what usually happen is, when you start moving files, right, you try to clean out the files because you don't want all the same junk to go into your new system, right? So what you will say, okay, this movie I have already seen, let's take it out, right? These pictures are not relevant anymore, or previously, what we used to do is we used to save all the pictures because we were not sure whether we'll get those pictures again on internet or not. But now we know everything is available online, so you'll remove that. Some of the files you'll see, okay, I have already have them over my email, so let's not move them. I already have a copy, let's not move them. Let's delete them from here. Some files you'll say, okay, I have these files on my hard disk, no need to move to the laptop again, right? So you make these choices, right? So you say which data you want to move and which data you do not want to move, which data you think is very crucial, which data you is junk data, and you will also have some data where you'll take some time to decide, is it important or is it not important, right? So whenever you do a movement, you try to clean up your data as well. So same thing happens when you're moving from one system to another system in a data migration project. You try to clean up the data. You try to come up with some rules of which data is not useful to you, right? So for example, I work in an policy system, right? So insurance policy system. So I may have some policies which, as an insurer, I may have logged 20 years back. So that data is not required anymore, right? um, i I may be as part of regulation on my company, I may be required to keep a record of all those policies. So what I may end up doing is create a backup of it and keep it somewhere, so that in case I need it in future, I can refer to it. But I may not necessarily decide to move all that old data to the new system, right? So sometimes data migration projects will be like, we will only move last 3 year data, we will only move data from the last year, like that, right? We will only move data for this particular line of business, not for other line of business, like that, right? So you figure out some rules, of course, talking to the client and understanding from the client. So one thing that you need to do as a BA on a data migration project is to understand what needs to be left out. What are the rules of my data migration? Which data I will be sending across and which data I will not be sending across, ensuring that I'm covering all data. It should not happen that I have derived some rule and some data is moved, but I left out some data unintentionally. That should not happen. Every data should either be deliberately moved or should deliberately be left out. It should not happen that the query you have written is missing out on any data. So that should not happen, and you have to be very careful about it. But yes, you have to ensure which data you want to move and which data you don't want to move. Any questions so far from anyone?
Yes, Shipra, I have one.
Mhm.
Uh, so, what data has to be taken, or how much, and from which source to what target? This is after the discussion with the client, right? So,
Both
does
source and target are fixed, right? So
yeah,
in
yeah,
data migration project, it's not like which source to which target. Source and target are
Mhm.
fixed. Which is the question for the data only.
Yeah,
Hmm.
like say for example, employee to person or something, some fields to field. So this call is taken by a BA or from technical team, Shipra.
The technical team will not take that call. It's the BA will figure this out after closely discussing it with the client.
Okay.
So you can only do that once you understand the data, right? So
Hmm.
when you get the data, so you have to understand, different categories of the data. Okay, so I have, this, how I can divide my data. I can divide my data for different entities, right? So I can have data for employees, I can have data for my clients. Then you'll ask the question to the client: do I want to move my employee data? Do I want to move my client data? Or do I want to move both? Right? Then after looking at the data, you have understood, okay, my data, I can divide it per year. Then you'll say, I noticed, to the client, I noticed that your data is starting from 1990. Do you want to move all records from 1990, or do you want to move records from maybe last 3 years or 5 years only? Right? Then you are analyzing data and you are saying, okay, my data comprises of salary information, and it is having a breakup of uh, basic salary and variable pay, right? Then you will pose to the client question, okay, do we want to keep the breakup as is, or do we want to sum them up and save them together in the new system? You can also get this question when you are doing the mapping exercise, right? So the when you see the data, right, it will start making sense to you, and you have to find out a trend in the data. If you look at the data individually in line by line, it won't make any sense to you. But what you have to do is you have to understand the trend in the data, what my data is about, what information it is keeping, and then pose different types of questions to the client. No client will say, move. They'll be like, when you talk to the client, do you want to move all data, or do you have some do you want to clean up the data? If you ask this question, no client will be able to help you, because they don't know how to clean up the data, right? And they'll end up saying, okay, move all my data. But no, that's not the question you are going to ask. As a BA, we have to ask the right questions, right? So the question you are going to ask is, do I want to move the data starting 1990, or do I want to move the data starting 2000, or do I want to move the data starting 2020, right? Is there a cutoff date? The question I need to ask is, do I want to move employee data, or do I want to move I noticed that my data, employee data also include contractors, uh, data, which are not with the organization anymore. Do we want to move contractors data as well, right? So if you ask these specific questions, you'll get the specific answers. But otherwise, if you ask a generic question, do you want to move all data or not, you'll get a generic answer, okay, move all my data. And then the client will realize that you have also moved, let's say, contractors data, and these contractors are not with the organization anymore. They'll be like, you made us pay for something that we didn't wanted in the first place, right? So you have to ask specific questions after analyzing the data to be an effective.
Yeah, sure. So a BA in communication with the stakeholder guides the technical team, how what needs to be done.
Yeah. So when you are creating your mapping document, right? So before the mapping document is essentially an Excel file. Usually Excel is used for that, right? So in one of the tab, you have to specify the rules of which data to be moved and which not. So you have to say to them, move, or the scope of this project. You have to define the scope. So you'll say, my scope is all employee data. Out of scope is contractors data who are not with the organization anymore, but in scope, contractors data who are with the organization. So if you give these kind of statements, then they will apply the particular logic. So you have to define the scope of your data migration, what all needs to be moved and what not. Yeah. And when you are defining the scope, also define your assumptions. So if you are assuming something, right? So you are assuming that, let's say you have made an assumption that my employee data also include uh, employees who are on contract basis, or who are not full-time employees, right? So if you are making some assumption that my employees also include part-time employees, then you have to note down this assumption in your mapping document so that everyone can confirm to it. Because let's say you are assuming that my employees also include part-time employees, but client may not be thinking that way, right? So, and client will not be able to point it out unless you note it down. Then if you have made that assumption, and when client will have a look at it, and they'll be like, oh no, we don't want part-time employees to be part of this exercise, right? So that's when they'll tell you what to do. But if you're not noting down your assumptions and you're just keeping your assumptions to your own, then no one will be validating those assumptions. And then, the question will be on the BA, why you didn't noted it down in the first place. Does that answer your question?
Yes, yes, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. So assumptions, scope, and exclusion, all three of them you have to mention as part of your mapping document, so that you can ensure that correct data is transferred over, and whatever data you didn't want it is left behind.
Yes, sure.
Yeah. And it will also help you categorize your data. So in a data migration project, you cannot make a decision line by line, right? But when you are doing a data cleaning exercise, or when you are understanding the data, that time you are categorizing your data. So I have found one trend, and this trend will take care of my 2000 data records. I have found another trend which I want to be treated differently, and this trend will take care of my another 1000 records, right? So is this way the data migration approach is taken. It is not possible for anyone to just say move everything from this to that. You have to do a data cleaning exercise as well in parallel. Yeah. Second
Yes, sure.
thing is transformation. So when you're moving data from source system to the target system, you cannot move the data as is. You have to transform the data at multiple points as well, right? So let's take an example. I have ID, I have name, and I have salary, right? So ID is 1, 2, 3, 10, 11, 12 in my current system. But the system that I am moving it to, They are also calling it as an ID field, but what they are doing is they are saying I do not want I do not keep the number as 1 2 3 4. I keep the IDs as 00001. I have 5 digit. It is mandatory for ID to be of 5 digit, right? So even if I have to say 1, I have to say 00001, right? So that's a rule. Then when you are creating your mapping document, you'll say move ID field in source system to ID field in target system, but append ID field with leading zeros so that the total ID is 5 digits. So that kind of rule you will write. The F team will then say, okay, I have to move 11. So I'll say 00011, 12, 00012, right? So they'll move it like that. So you have to define the rules of moving. You have to transform your number 1 to 00001. You have to transform your number 11 to 00011, like that, right? So data is transforming. Second transformation that happens is name, let's say. So you are saying move name field in source system to employee name field in target system. But when you are moving, um, you know, combine the two name, first name and surname. So in my source system, first name is there. In my uh, source system, last name is there. So when you are moving this source system from source system to target system, club concatenate my first name and last name and then send. So in my source system I have two fields, Shipra and Gupta. When I am moving it to my target system, in employee name I am sending Shipra space Gupta, right? So I'm clubbing the two and I'm sending it across like that. After concatenating, I can transform my data as well. So let's say in my source system I am having salary in INR. When I am moving to the target system, convert this INR to USD amount after applying this so and so rate of exchange. So it convert the amount. So my target system keeps the salaries in US dollars. So convert all the INR amounts into US dollars, all the pound amount into US dollars, like that, right? So those kind of transformation rules you will have to write. Another example of transformation rule can be in my source system, I may be saying lead. In my target system, I may be calling it as leader. So convert lead to leader. So I have to create mapping tables. So if my source system says lead, move it to leader field. If my source system says um, boss, move it to leader field. If my source system says X, move it to leader field, like that, right? So you have to send the data which is um, consumed, which is consumable by the target system. So target system only understands leader and follower, like two fields, right? So my source system may have 10 data drop down values. So I have to convert all those drop down values to the drop down values which my target system allows. That's one transformation. Date transformation may be required. So I might be keeping my dates as a DD, MM, YY, YY format. My target system may be keeping dates as YY, YY, DD format. So when I say move date from source system to date field in target system, the rule is move, convert DDMMYYYY to YYYYMMDD, like that, right? So you club your data, you perform calculations on your data. Some fields you will transfer over, some fields you will not transfer over. And to Alok's question, right? So let's say my source system has 6 fields. My target system has 8 fields. I am moving data. I have 2 more fields in the target system which are mandatory. But I don't have this data. What will I do? Then in those cases, I will define the default value. So I'll say when I am moving when I am moving a data record for this target field column, set default to 0, or send it as X amount, or send it as blank, right? So you have to understand what extra fields are there in the target system, whether they are mandatory or whether they are optional. And if there are optional, say, keep them as blank as part of your mapping exercise. If they are mandatory, then you have to define a default value. So by default, every row will will have a X value. Or you might be required to say, if these conditions are met, send it as um, you know this value. If these conditions are met, send it as this value. So for example, if my employee ID starts with an E, send employee type as employee. Let's say employee type is a new field in the target system. So if my ID starts with E, send employee type as employee. If my ID starts with C, send employee type as contractor. If my ID starts with P, set employee type as part-time employee, right? So these kind of rules you may be required to fill up the extra fields in the target system. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Yes,
Shipra.
yes, Shiva.
Does that answer your question, Ale?
Yes, yes, yeah, very much. So, and also, it required to insert like maybe who will change. Suppose want to add more field in the table, so they will be insert uh, some attributes. So who will change? Like I will provide the data mapping sheet with business logic to developer. So developer or DBA team will change the data in the table
No, so
database.
when we are doing data migration, right? We do not
Mhm.
make changes to the database structure. What we do is we try to fit the existing data into existing database structure. Until
Okay.
and unless there is an essential need, and without which we cannot proceed, and it's a blocker, what
Mm-hmm.
we have to do is we have to adjust within the new system itself. So let's say I am having, 5 extra fields in my source system, and my
Mm-hmm.
target system does not have these 5 fields. In that case, I'll go back to the client and I'm going to say to them, you are going to lose this data because your target system does not have these fields. Now they will have two choices. Either they agree to lose the data,
Mm-hmm.
or they'll ask the target system to include those fields in. So then that's not your call, right? So target system is owned by your client. So or some other team, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then those fields will be added first, and then you'll continue with your work. But until unless those fields are added in, you cannot go to the target team and say that add those fields in by yourself. You have to ask,
Okay. Okay.
get the
Okay. Yes.
permission from the client, right?
Mm-hmm.
And most of the times, right, because your target system is an enhanced system, most of the times this case will not occur because target system is always developed considering the future needs, and it
Right.
will always have more fields rather than your
Yes.
old
Yes. Yeah.
legacy system. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
the case is very rare, but in it
Mm-hmm.
you might encounter such cases. In that case, you can, it's on to the client what they want to do.
Maybe some customization will be required. Maybe the system is already like out of the box or default system, and as per client maybe. So in this case, maybe some uh, uh, change value addition will be there with the agreement with the client.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. Thank you. And what kind of skill will be required? Like this is whatever you mentioned so far. This is like okay, analyzing the and comparing the data between two systems. But in apart from this, what kind of technical skill is required? Maybe SQL, or maybe is this possible? BA is also responsible for inserting table or adding value in the table. This is a very like critical part.
Yeah, so BA will not be inserting the values for sure. But
Hmm.
yes, SQL skill is kind of must have for data migration projects. The reason being is you'll need the skills to analyze the data. If you do not possess skill to do a select query on SQL,
Hmm.
what will
Hmm.
happen is you will become too much dependent on your dev team. right? So what will happen is you have to see your data, you'll ask the dev team, okay, run this query and give the extract to me in an Excel. And what will
Mhm.
happen is if they'll give you an extract in Excel, so Excel has a limitation of number of rows, but
Right.
MySQL does not have it. So you might get some truncated data and you won't even realize it, right?
Mhm.
Some data
Mhm.
might have lost. In case developer has not put the query correctly, you might get up, getting some other data which was not correct. If let's say you are requesting developer to give you the data and the developer is busy,
Mhm.
developer giving you data for after 2 days, you are stuck, right? You can't proceed without that data.
Mhm.
So there is too much dependency on developer in this case, which it is, better to avoid. All you need to do is go to W3 schools, learn
Mhm.
how to
Okay.
write a select query, and just write a select query, do your hands-on within an hour or so, you can learn how to write a select query.
Mhm.
Start writing select queries in the database. How to access the database, you can get that KT from your developer, right? So
Mhm. Yes.
they'll give you the server name, they'll give you the database table name, they'll give you the columns.
Mhm.
Open it up, it looks like just an Excel I showed you, right? Rows and columns. So it's not
Yes.
difficult to understand database tables. Select
Mhm.
query, you can easily learn it on Google. Use that select query, start writing SQL commands. Just ask your developer to show you how to do that, how to
Mhm.
run a command. Within
Mhm.
an hour or so you will become independent of developer. Yeah,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
it's going to help you a lot in long term if you're working on a data migration project and otherwise also.
Mhm. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, but it's kind of must have for a data migration project because otherwise
Yeah.
your work will be too challenging to do.
I was part of this kind of project, but my role was like maybe just for some time. So I had to validate after migration of the person or maybe policy. So whether we are able to create policy or not, just so I had to validate the things. But yeah, in background, whatever you mentioned, some other team has developed the mapping sheet and they got the access. Even they did not get the access of database of source, so they used to give the data mapping sheet or we had to compare with my table system table and there. So in this way other team was also involved, but yeah, it was
Mhm.
good learning for me.
Yeah,
Thank you. Yeah.
yeah.
I'm able to correlate, that's why whatever you are saying, I'm very much able to correlate the things what I did and how the things is happening in background. Thank you
Good
so
to
much.
good to hear that, Alok, because
I'm
I
also
myself
totally non-tech background, so I've been working for the last 6 7 years effectively in IT. Although I was in different operation team,
uh-huh.
but because of some domain expertise in insurance, I got chance to work in IT. So many. Unfortunately, initially I was very unhappy why they aligned me in this data magazine. It was completely I was not able to understand the things like where I then slowly gradually I started learning the things. Then I decided, okay, I am uh, uh, keeping myself more equipped. Now I am able to understand. I can talk, I can understand the things if I will have to work in data migration or legacy migration, the high
Mhm.
level.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
that's it. Yeah, thank you.
Mhm. Thanks, Alok, for sharing your
Mhm.
experiences.
Yes.
And
Mhm.
yeah, truth needs to be told, right? Data
Yes.
Yeah,
migration
hi Shipra.
is one of the worst projects to be in for a BA.
Mhm.
It's very challenging, very tricky,
Right.
and
Mhm.
the chances of missing essential requirements are very high.
Right.
Right?
Right.
The main challenge of data migration project is you might not have access to the target system at
Yes.
all.
Yes.
All you have is a sheet given to you that these are the
Right.
fields.
Right.
Uh,
Yes. Yes.
it it's quite tricky and to navigate in such a project, and it's quite risky project to be in, and it's quite boring as well.
Yes. Yes.
So
Yeah.
data migration projects, if you can avoid, do avoid,
Right.
but
Right.
uh, they do have their own charm as well if you're
Yes.
good with data.
Mhm. Mhm.
Okay. Yeah. So, just concluding on what we talked about, right? So, data migration, moving from source system to target system. You have to note down your assumptions. You have to note down the scope. You have to note down the out of scope so that you can ensure that data is a cleaned data that you are transferring over. You have to create a mapping sheet between the source system and the target system. When you are doing that, you have to define the rules of the movement. Plus you will also have to understand the structure of the target system, whether your current structure will, how your current structure will fit into that. And the third thing you also have to do is, which we have not talked about so far, is understand the data format as well in the target system. So let's say your current system only has data of 500 data length, and your target system is only 250 data length. Then what you have to do is, you have to highlight to the client that because my target is only 250 data length, either increase the data length of the target field, or you'll end up getting your data truncated. But before that, you will also have to analyze how many records are there with which will get truncated when you move over, right? So data format is also important. Sometimes you will find differences between uh, the complete data type is different. So some field might be numeric in your application, and the same field might be alphanumeric in the other application, right? So how will you move a number to a text field, so or a text to a number field? So those kind of challenges you will face, which you need to sort out with your client. Yeah.
Yes, yes, yeah.
Hey,
Yes,
hi,
sir.
Shipra.
Yeah, hi sir.
Uh,
Sarvayan.
Acha, Shipra, normally you have normally I just joined late over there, so just I wanted to know कि normally you have covered the subject over there from uh, which domain, from the insurance, or it is from a general domain over there, from the source to target.
So we are talking about data migration projects today. So
Okay,
it's not necessarily related to any particular domain. Data migration can happen in any domain.
okay.
Yeah, but
So
domain knowledge is important for a BA, even if you are working on a data migration project, because until and unless you understand the data, what that data constitutes,
correct,
it will
correct.
be very difficult for you to do the mappings.
Yeah, because we, even though we are from the banking domain, so normally we have that particularly either the core banking system from the one X system to the one Y system. So our basically the particularly the data migration activity take place over there. So we have the many of the series of the data mapping, like you call say the metrics. We need to prepare how before and after that particularly the metrics shall work, and the table cell which the data would be falling over there.
Right,
So many more things. Actually, data migration is a big. I think so. It's a big gesture over there to just have a one session over there. It's a very when we look upon the data migration, it's not an when preparing a data matrix over there, it seems to be a very easier one. But when it runs into a practical, like having the TXT files into the SQL over there, so it takes much of the time, because for the one day also when we have a test data, so it has the many number of records, and we need to just identify that all the records are in place or not.
right,
So QA as well as the testing part, and it's, the planning, proper planning, it's a must over there.
right. So data migration are not an easy project in any ways, for sure.
Correct. You
And
correctly
most of
you
the
correctly mentioned that normally if it is an avoidable, you can just avoid that thing and learn something good in the further over there.
yeah. So and uh, the thing is, like, many surprises will come in the last minute only. You'll go live and then you realize, oh, there was a whole bunch of data that was left behind, and we have to do another data migration project to to cover those.
Correct, correct. And if you want to just have that, don't do it in the month of say December to March, because that is an appraisal time. So you may land up something having a demotion over there, or something have a curse effect from your reporting manager.
So, data migration projects will run year on year, right?
Year on year, correct,
They are 2 to 4 years project at least.
correct,
So, if you yeah, if you don't want to run around, for to the clients, and if you want an easier life, data migration might be the project for you. If you want stability, right?
correct.
So they will run for 3 to 4 years. So you can't really avoid your appraisals and December to March period. But yeah, uh, they are very long term projects, and
Hmm.
uh, don't quote me on saying that don't do data migration, because
No,
then
no, no.
there won't be
That's
proper BS who will do it.
no,
We
no, no,
do
no.
need some BS who will do that, right? Otherwise, we'll end up doing ourselves.
No.
Shipra, any reasons for running these projects in lengthy period?
Yeah, because the volume of data is so much. So when you start looking into your database, we are talking about billions of records sometimes, right? And analyzing all those records, ensuring that they move correctly to the target database. There are different types of records, right? So moving all that data is not an easy feat, which can be accomplished in a 6 month project. So
But Shipra, I guess it depends upon the project we are working. It might be a small data migration also from a small system to the another new system. The vendors over there might have got changed over there. So and it might happen that one a core banking system like in our banking, the CBS got from Finacle to another T24. Means normally it depends upon which data migration you are working on. Either it is a short term project or it is maybe a long term project. Short term project maybe run into 6 months to 8 months over there, but a long term project may vary upon, as Chipra said, to 3 years or 4 years, somewhere around.
yeah, so of course it depends on the project. But I also mentioned, I'm not sure whether you were there or not. So I also mentioned that if it is small data migration, it it is better to recommend to the client to do it manually rather than doing a complete project of mapping 400, 500 columns and end up realizing that okay, we moved only 200 rows out of it, right? So uh, so that
But
benefit also you need to check out.
yeah, but do the clients agree on doing that manually over there? I
Sometimes some,
guess
sometimes they do. It depends on the data type, right? So
correct, correct.
if
Depend upon
let's say,
scenario to
yeah,
scenario, situation to situation, and the cost benefit approach over there. How much is their budget over there?
exactly, exactly. So let's say I have 500 columns of data, but my records are only 200, and out of those 200, as per my cleaning rules, I need to transfer only 50, and I have to leave behind 150. So mapping 500 fields for and keeping a transformation logic and doing the transformation and everything for just 50 records does not make sense at all, right?
Correct. At that time,
So,
the
yeah, so they
policy
might.
changes.
Yeah, so it's a cost versus benefit analysis that you need to carry out first of all, right? So even for data migration on a large scale, you have to figure out how long it's gonna take you, and what's the benefit you will get out of it, and that may be the reason that data migration projects are usually not picked up by even the clients. They continue on legacy systems. They'll say, they end up saying that cost of moving itself is so much. I'll let me continue on the old system itself. It's working for me, and I'm happy with it.
Yeah,
So
yeah. The risk associated is quite higher on that particular.
yeah, and data migration projects usually are a part of major transformation projects. So when you pick up a data migration project, you also try to do a transformation in your organization as well. And you not only touch one system, you touch all the processes in the organization. You touch all the existing systems in the organization. You try to discard the old ones. You try to pick up the new ones, right? So the whole transformation exercise is usually carried out whenever you plan a data migration, because it makes sense to do it in one go rather than spending time on data migration and then picking up other systems which might not be that beneficial to you anymore.
Shipra, correct me if I'm wrong. I think since you mentioned that these projects take in a lengthy period, right? So most of the time goes in deciding what data has needs to be transferred on and the format. Is it right?
Yes, so that's the only thing that we are doing, right? Data, what data needs to move and how to transform the data. So that's the exercise that VA needs to carry out. And once that is done, dev will do their work and they'll move the data. Yeah.
Yeah. So actual transfer of like if I'm copying something to my pen drive, so that is
Mhm.
also a data manipulation in a smaller scale. So this
Mhm.
transfer of data from legacy to in target system, does it take does it depend upon speed or any, I mean, or is it a completely technical thing?
Yeah, it's a technical thing, and usually what happens is a POC is carried out, right? So they will not move the entire data in one go. They'll try to divide the entire project into smaller chunks. So let me take an example. So in my policy administration systems, I keep data for my policy contracts. I keep data for my parties, right? I keep data for vehicles. I keep data for locations like that. So I keep different types of data. So in a data migration, they will not do a big bang and say, okay, one day you were using old system, now next day everything is moved into a new system. They try to transfer over the data in chunks, in smaller chunks. So one time I'll move all my party data, and even for my party data I'll try to move few records first. If they are successful in lower environments, then I'll try to move some more, then I'll try to move some more, right? And once I'm very comfortable that yes, UAT is exactly what I wanted it to be, and everyone has confirmed, then I'll just do it in live, and then I'll start picking up other types of data. So uh, you try to mitigate your risks as well, side by side.
Understood. Okay. And also, Shipra, you mentioned that the BM might not have access to the target system, right?
Hmm. Yeah,
Is it because of
it does.
confidentiality
It
reason?
does happen sometimes. Yeah.
Reasons, Shipra, like the client doesn't want BA to have access to it.
Yeah, so there can be a variety of reasons, right? So let's say the client is using a legacy system and now they have purchased your system, right? So uh, the client will not get like a license for the older system because they are not happy with the migration project, right? So they'll try to put blockers in your way. So they will not give you access to their system because you are taking over. That could be one reason. Second reason could be licensing, right? So they'll ask you to purchase the license and your project management does not want to purchase a license, so you might not get the target system in right in your hands. um, and and yeah, sometimes they'll just say, why do you need access to the target system? Take this Excel consists of all the fields in the target system, right? So you might not always get a target system because of any number of reasons.
Okay, sure.
But yes, please do ensure that you ask about it and you ask about it again and again and again and again. Because the moment you get the target system UI in your hands, the moment your life becomes easier. But till that time, keep asking for it, but you might not get it for a long time.
Okay.
So, Shipra, one question: how we can uh, define, like someone want to only change the UI, like UI modernization, data will be same. Maybe all the data, all the information, existing information will be same, but I want to change the UI
Mm-hmm.
look and feel, and because that screen is very old, and
Yeah.
so, and also they want to move from db2 to ms sql or some other database, but system all the data will be same, and but I also at the same time I want to change the ui. So what kind of project we can call, like legacy migration, or UI modernization or
So let's understand this, right? So one UI can be linked to one database only. I cannot have
Mhm.
one UI linked to it can link to multiple databases, but when you are doing a migration, right? So the new UI, that UI will be definitely mapped to your target database,
Yes,
right?
yes. Mhm.
So whatever UI target database system is creating, that's not part of the data migration project. The part of data migration project is from moving from your source system to the new system. So let's say I have created a UI based on my Oracle database, and that's the
Mhm.
entire application I am offering to the clients,
Mhm.
right? So I have sold this application with the along with the new UI and along with the Oracle database to my client, and now client wants to move the data from the old .NET SQL based server to the new server, to the new Oracle database, right? So in that
Mhm.
case, I carry out my uh, data migration activity irrespective of UI, right?
Okay.
I'll
Yes.
move my data from my SQL tables to Oracle tables because UI is already linked to my Oracle database. The moment the moment I move the data to the new database table, it will start reflecting in the new
Mm.
system. I need
Mm.
not do anything extra for that.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
So
so you
we can call legacy migration, data migration, or legacy modernization. Same. These all are same words.
um could be, yeah.
Mhm. Okay.
Hey Shipra, hi. Hi everyone.
Mm.
Yeah.
Uh,
Hi.
Shipra, I have a
Thank
question.
you.
So this is for any one of us could answer it. So when we
Sure.
say we are migrating from our system A to system B, so what are the other parameters that we consider while migration apart from the data?
um the very first thing that we have to consider is the structure.
Mm-hmm.
I might not have the same structure available in the target system. So as I mentioned, I may have two-tier structure in my source. My target may be having three-tier structure. I may be having parent-child relationship in my source. My target may have a flat structure where there are no parents, no hierarchy whatsoever, right? So understanding the structure is one aspect. Understanding the security is another aspect. uh, you know I might not be able to hit the target system if there are security rules defined in. So even if I have moved the data but I have not alongside set up the security permissions to the users, they might not end up seeing that data which was intended. So data might be available in the database but not visible on the front end because the user has not been given the permissions, right? Or I may get blocked by the security of the other system. um, that is another aspect. Most of them are technical aspects, how the two systems will interact with each other. um, when the data migration will happen, do I need any cutoff, right? So there are whole other set of parameters as well which are considered, but those parameters you'll come to realize the more you progress, because some of the other team member will point them out to you,
Got it.
or you'll figure them out during POCs.
So these are non-functional requirements, basically the non-functional parameters that we consider. They also come into picture while migrating, right?
They might come into picture. Yeah.
Okay, okay. And the first point, what you mentioned about structures, what do you mean by structures exactly?
So structure is basically the way the data is entered into a system, right? So I may not have a flat structure, I may have a hierarchy. So for example, I may have a parent, and under that parent I may have child structure. I can have a two-tier structure. Yeah. uh, I may have a one entity and I have second entity. Those two entities are linked to each other in a with a relationship, right? So I can let's say an example of an insurance. on my insurance policy, I am saving insured name, who is purchasing the policy. I'm saving the name of the person who is writing the policy. I'm saving the name of the person who is a nominee. So all these are different parties. So their party data is saved separately, but I am linking those parties to my contract. So there is a relationship between my parties and my contract. Uh, I'm sorry, it's not a very good example, but yeah, I'm trying to explain it.
Okay,
Yeah. So
Shipra, extending to your point, let me give you some point of view.
yeah,
So actually, normally a data type structure, say if X system to Y system, if you take only the client details, if the client detail has a PAN number or you can say Aadhaar number, if it has the data type structure of the PAN number as a 10 digit, so I am expecting my the target system to have that particular client master in that the PAN number field attribute would be having that particular 10 digit. So it should not happen like that. Ki if I make it at around 8 digit, so then my structure would get failed. So my it would show an exception over there when it is done a migration over there. So like this, we need to have normally before taking the data migration, what we do analyze key what are the attributes that we require to migrate, and having that attribute key we need to see key in the target system we do have prepared that database table with the attributes data type structures same over there. It should not happen key one is the at the higher end, the other one is at the minimal end, so exceptions chances are very high. So we need to have a sync over there while preparing the data metrics over there. And whenever the migration take place, it should run smoothly without any exception.
yeah,
Shipra, I hope
yeah.
I given this some good example.
Yeah, so the example that you are given, right? That's part of the mapping mainly.
Correct. Hmm.
Yeah. So let me take another example for a structure. So I'll give an example which we faced, right? So in our system, what we used to say is, I have one contract, and when I renew it next year, I create another contract, right? So if I have renewed a policy for 5 years, I have five numbers generated in my system. So you can open up your auto insurance policy, right? So you have auto insurance policy for this year. Next year, when you renew it, you'll see a new number on it. Next year, when you renew it, you will see a third number on it, right? So every year, I get a new number of my policy. So this is how my insurance system is built up. Now, what happened was we were asked to move this data to another system. And when we analyze the other system, they didn't used to create new numbers every year. What they used to do was they used to have a header record, and in this header record, they used to create periods. So period one, period two, period three, period four, and all in this period they used to have their all the contract information. So what is a new policy in my system is not a new policy in their system. Now, how will I move? What I have to do is I have to say to them, create a new period and then move this data to the other system. Do you understand that difference? It's not a simple mapping exercise where I say, this data goes to that field. I also have to define how the new record is created in the other system. The, did that help? So that's the structural difference.
Yes. So there could be a lot of discrepancies while.
Yeah. So what I have to say is identify identify that my renewal policy is linked to the which original policy. How I will identify that? I have to give that rule. Then I have to say, while migrating data from this system to another system, create a new period record in that system, and within that period record, add the values in underneath. Do not touch the header record, or do not touch that old record. And which fields in the old record also needs to be updated, I have to mention that as well, right? So I have to take care of the cases where the header record itself needs to be changed, where the, let's say, my insured company has renamed themselves, right? So my header record also needs to be changed for the new insured name. It's the same insured, but they have changed their name. So those kind of cases I have to also uh, define out or lay out for my technical team. So there was a structural difference.
Yeah.
Yeah, I may have a flat structure in my system. I'll say I'm only capturing data as a single line item, but my other system might be asking me to, split that data and give a parent record and then a child record, right? So they might want a single record in my data to be split out into multiple rows in their system. So how I will split out a single row and then move different data points, which points will go in for one line, which points will go in second table, right? Those kind of rules I may also need to define out or lay out.
Okay. Thanks for the explanation, Chitra. That was crisp. And
Yeah.
thanks for the extended information, Sarah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
welcome.
Hi, Shipra. I have one
Yeah.
question. Um, yeah, generally in the
Hello.
have a team or probably the operation is, how do you verify from the source data source system to the destination system data is migrated as is? Is there any ways or is there any techniques, the standard procedure where we can verify?
Testing will happen, right? So when you define the rules when they are developed, then when they are migrated, testing will happen on the target system, and testing team will ensure that all the data has moved as per the requirements that you have given out.
No, but we have generally seen when we do a limited data migration, then we see that okay, data is correct. But when we do a large data, like take a million records, then there are some differences will definitely come. But how do we make sure that what are those differences?
Okay. It's tricky, definitely. Yeah. So one thing that is first of all checked is the count of records. The very first thing that is checked is count of records. So you moved 100 records out of one system. Did 100 entries got created in another system or not? If 99 entries have been made, there's definitely a failure, and you need to do a root cause analysis to find out what failed. Yeah. That's a sure shot check
Okay,
of failure. Yeah. Now now comes the tricky part. How can you ensure that the data has moved as intended? Because you have defined the mappings, right? And someone needs to verify those mappings somehow. And plus
correct.
you cannot do a comparison that source was this, target was this, because you have moved the data according to what was supposed to be moved, right? So there is no comparison again. So it's not like you'll compare rows and you'll say okay, this is fine. So generally what happens at the end of data migration is there are reports that are created to ensure that the data is correct, right? So maybe they'll say okay, generate a record of total amount. So if your total amount in the old system was 1000, and the total amount, or total sum of record, I'm not talking about count of records, a value in a particular field, right? So premium, for example. So if my premium was 1000 in my old system and my premium is coming out to be 950 in the new system, I have messed up the logic somewhere for sure, right? So different types of rules are run to ensure the data correctness. So as part of your testing, you or testing support, you have to define out what kind of reports can be generated out of this data, so that you can ensure that yeah, data has migrated correctly. Because when you are writing the rules, you are writing the rules for individual rows, right? So let's say you are saying while sending premium, add this, and this value should be there in the final file. And then you'll do a total here, and then you do a similar calculations on all the data here, and you see whether the total is matching or not. Yeah. So those kind of checks you can.
Okay,
Text will be difficult to check for sure. Other uh, other challenges may come up when users start using the system. So sometimes let's say they're using the system and then they're complaining, your my address field got truncated, right? And
correct.
I'm not
Yeah,
having the complete address. That is the time when you'll
correct.
realize okay, when you were mapping, you didn't count it for the data length, and that's why you messed up. And that's the very reason that it is very important for a BA to be very thorough with their analysis, because the misses are not evident till they go live and someone complains about it, right? So, so
Correct. Is there any tools are there which
hello.
He was asking about the
hello?
tools if there is available for the particular testing, I guess.
Um,
Yeah, testing and also yeah, the once the migration production migration is done, uh, so where it can give us the clear analysis of the migration.
I myself is not aware of any particular tools, but I have seen reports being generated solely for the purpose of testing the data migration. So client does, develop some Power BI reports or other reports, and once the migration happens, they, run those reports, get an extract out, and um, let everyone know that somewhere something is missing. So. Uh, some reports are specifically created for testing data migration, which are also, checked on lower environments as well. But I'm not particularly aware
Okay.
of any particular tools that are used for testing data migration.
Basically, Shipra, normally
Okay.
what we do at the banking end, na, as you said, normally the first set of records, what we take it as the data counts. So before and the post, pre and the post, we check the data counts whether it has been came or not. The second stage is like that, whatever the test that we have selected and whatever the earlier reports what we have in our hand, the after the migration, the same report and the same data what we are expecting, does it came or not, means that is an accuracy over there what we take it out, because the rules whether they were linked or to not have been linked, we can check it out over there. So means our QA team normally also check how many attributes are there, particularly after having the pre and the post migration. So each and every attributes are being checked over there. Okay, after the migration, that particular attribute value doesn't have got changed over there. So means it gets an open view over there. Basically, we take the pre and the post reports over there, the written copy, how the written data comes over there, whether it is on a proper note or whether it needs to be modified or needs to be linked to some other fields over there.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that experience. Yeah, that's my understanding as well. Count and, existing reports or new reports that are created to check the database. Of course, testing is another bit wherein they'll check all the columns one by one, all the records one by one as well. So, but yeah, of course it is not possible to do it on billion records, so they do random testing. So they pick up any random record and see whether it has moved correctly or not. So they set up that, okay, for billion records we are going to test 10 random records. So it's more of a hit or miss kind of thing, but testing team is very diligent in that case, that they'll, even if they are doing random testing, they'll find out some misses for sure, right? So testing team also plays a very important part in data migration projects. They try to create different scenarios in their select queries, so as to ensure that they can find out any misses or any gaps.
The basic line overline is like normally the scope is defined for all. The BA scope is defined, tester scope is already defined, and particularly who the technical persons, the developer, their scope is also defined over there.
Mhm. Yeah. So we have overshooted by 33 minutes already, but it was quite an engaging discussion, and I hope I was able to clarify most of the steps in data migration projects. Um,
Yes,
I
Shipra, very much.
Yeah, I talked to one of my
Yeah, thanks for the same.
I
yeah,
think there will one more session is also required.
Yeah, so I talked to one of my ex-colleagues. He is currently working in a data migration project. So I've requested
Mm,
him if he can spare some time, not necessarily next week, but one of the upcoming weeks, to share his experience on what challenges he has faced, and how they mitigated those challenges. So I'll try to get in touch with him again and again. I'll pester him to
mm,
take up this session. So he is very experienced guy, and he's very knowledgeable as well. So he'll definitely bring more insights on the table. So I hope to schedule that session, once more in near future. So that will be really helpful to all of us. Yeah.
mhm.
So we'll try our best.
One just last question, this short. Is this lift and shift? I heard this terminology, lift and shift. This is also part of migration, like just lift that all the policy and insert in different system. And
Yeah. So I'll tell you a live example from my project. So what happened was we had this V1 structure. So we called it version one, right? So what we used to have is we had a flat database structure where every record is just added onto the database tables. Then uh, we got some functional requirements, and in order to support those functional requirements, we are a product company, right? So we decided
Mhm,
that we will come up with the version 2 of the product. And in this version 2, we changed from the flat structure to a three tier structure, wherein not even three tier, so yeah, three tier structure, in which you can have a parent, under that parent you can have a child, and under that child you can have a subchild, one or more subchilds, right? So
mhm,
here it was just flat structure, you can only have one record. Then we changed from flat structure to three tier architecture, and that also necessitated the change in our database structures or database tables. So for the clients which were already on V1, we ran a project for them, and we said we will migrate you from V1 to V2 version. And what we did was we did a lift and shift. And what that meant was we just did a mapping of backend tables. So we said previously your data was in table 1, whatever data is in table 1, we are splitting it out in table 1, table 1b, and table 1 b, 2b, like, just give
mhm,
me example like that, right? So let's say your V1. So V1 table 1, shift this data to, so shift the first three columns of V1 table 1 to V2 table 2, table 1, and rest of the columns to V2 table 2, like that, right? So we just moved the data from the backend to the backend. We knew what was the structure in version 1, we knew what was the structure in 2. We just lifted and shifted it in the backend itself. And because our V2 UI was linked to this backend, revised backend, it started
mhm,
showing up that data. So lift and shift is where you are just moving the data without any cleansing, without any transformation, but you are just lifting up the data from one table and shifting it to the other table. And that is only possible if your tab if you know your tables structure, uh, and if you are sure that you won't you don't need a data transformation at any point in time, because even our V2 tables were having the same split, right? It was not
yes.
like first name and surname, club them together and move them in a single field. No,
Mm,
we had first name and surname separated out in my second version as well, right? Because it
mhm.
was an enhancement on V1 version, so we were able to do a lift and shift there.
So it will take less time
It will take less time.
with more accuracy.
Yes, it will definitely take less time with more accuracy, but it is not always possible. It is only possible when your tables are in a sync. And I think in the sense that it's they are having same split. They don't need any transformation while moving over. You don't need to do any data cleaning exercise, right? So you just lift and you just shift it to the other set of tables, and that starts reflecting in the UI.
Yeah. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's close the session
Yes.
for today. Yeah, and I will talk more about it once I once I get hold of my friend. So
Yes, sure.
yeah.
Thank you so much, Shipra. Very good, very informative session.
Yeah, you're welcome. And thanks all those who participated in the discussion and shared their valuable experiences with us. Experiences, they bring more information on the table. They bring more queries as well. So I always encourage everyone to share their experience. Yeah.
Yes, sure.
Yeah.
Sure, Shipra. Thanks.
Thank you, Shipra.
Yeah. So thanks
Sure.
all. Thanks for being with
Okay.
us.
Thanks, Shipra. Bye,
Thanks for
everyone. Bye.
thanks for requesting the session as well. Thank
Yeah.
you. Have a happy weekend. Thank you.